never give it back.
From CHGO, it's Adam Hoge.
I don't think that this is a full rebuild, but you definitely have to retool your roster.
And from The Athletic, it's Adam Jahns.
Hey, what's up, Flus?
And we're going to have measurable ways for standards of performance every single rep, every single game.
Anyway, who cares?
Now, here they are, the Adams, Hoge Jahns.
What's up? Welcome in a special Tuesday episode as we bring in Dane Brugler right off the top, live on YouTube. That game the other day was just too good with Tyson Bagent. Everyone's catching up on this guy. He's been on the roster since the draft, but when they signed him as an undrafted free agent. But now everybody's excited. There's as happens here a lot, Dane, in Chicago. I'm sure you're aware, but people get excited about second and third string quarterbacks this time of year.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But Tyson Bagent he's a fun story. He's a really talented player. I was surprised he went undrafted. We saw more quarterbacks drafted this past year. It was like 14 than we had the previous 5 or 6 years. And Bagent wasn't one of them. And that was really, really surprising. But you know what? He got his chance, and he's more than taken advantage of it so far.
What was he maybe missing then compared to some of those others that got drafted in when he didn't? We've been watching him since the start of camp, and he's gotten better and better and better, while PJ Walker has gotten worse and worse and worse. So, like, what was he missing? And then what do you think maybe everybody kind of missed on him about?
Well, if you want to see Stetson Bennett go up against the best in college football, you can do that. Throw on his tape in the SEC title game or against Ohio State, or if you want to watch Aiden O'Connell, who's had a nice preseason for the Raiders, watch him against the best that the Big Ten has to offer. You can do that with Tyson Bagent, a Division II quarterback who there's just not a track record of really non-Division I quarterbacks really hitting. And Bagent doesn't have that tape against these top-level defenses at the college level. But in his defense, he did go to the Senior Bowl, and I thought he did a really nice job there. And this is a guy that FBS teams wanted. After his junior season, so after that 2021 season, he won the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is kind of the Division II version of the Heisman. And he entered the transfer portal, and Northwestern wanted him, Maryland wanted him, West Virginia wanted him. All these schools offered him. At the end of the day, he decided to go back to Shepherd, which, it's his hometown. He grew up around that campus. Both of his parents went to Shepherd. And the biggest reason was just to graduate. When you transfer, a lot of your credits don't transfer. And so it would have taken another year, 2 years for him to graduate. Meanwhile, he stays at Shepherd, is able to graduate there. So, staying at Shepherd was a decision I don't think he regrets, but I think it does play a factor in maybe why he did not get drafted. But again, all you need your chance. He's gotten it here in Chicago, and he's been able to show his talent.
Yeah, he mentioned after the game the other day about how this has been the longest he's ever been away from home. He's like, I haven't seen my mom in 3 weeks. It's like the longest it's ever been. Look, the Bears practiced against the Colts last week, and I thought it was just like a fascinating. You would have enjoyed being there, because just to see the contrast of like Anthony Richardson, who no question has the most raw talent. Fields does too, but definitely compared to Bagent. What I'm getting at is Richardson. You could just tell he's so raw. It looked shaky, but. Wow, he's a giant, and he can definitely move and all that stuff. And then you have this undrafted rookie who ends up playing in the game. And I thought Richardson should have played, by the way, Saturday. I just think he needs the reps. We're talking about a guy that had, 300-something career passes in college versus a guy that had over 2,000 in Bagent. And, where they're drafted, raw talent aside, I just thought you could see in this game, and I realize it's a preseason game, but Bagent looks so calm at the line of scrimmage, making the motions. And this is not an easy offense to pick up in just a few months. And I'm sure they pared it down for him and made it easy. But to me, that experience, that college experience, stood out in the game, even if it's just a preseason game. And as you're evaluating these quarterbacks, how much are you starting to, put more emphasis on just the amount of reps these guys get in college?
Yeah, Bagent started 53 games, and they won 43 of those games. So, he was a guy that won a lot of football games, played a lot of football. Nobody in the history of college football, you think of all the quarterbacks that have come through college football, nobody has more touchdown passes. That doesn't matter the level, Division I, Division II, Division III. Nobody has more touchdown passes than Tyson Bagent with 159. And he did it in 4 years. This isn't like, he got an extra COVID year or a fifth year. He did spend 5 years at Shepherd, but all of his touchdowns came in 4 seasons. So this is a guy that consistently productive. He got better and better as he went on, as his college career went on. And you saw things maybe slow down for him a little bit. But that was the big question. Obviously, going against D2 defenses to NFL defenses is a huge jump. And so what the speed of the game, would he be able to, catch up to that and process everything the way he needs to? This is a guy that looks the part. He's over 6'3", he's 215 pounds. He's not Anthony Richardson in terms of the mobility, but he's an athletic kid. He was one of only 2 quarterbacks at this year's combine under 7 seconds in the 3-cone. So this is a guy that is not a statue back there. And he's got a whip of an arm. He's not afraid to test those small windows. He operated in kind of it was a spread offense in college, but a lot of 5-step drops, a lot of RPOs where he's having to make these quick decisions, get the ball up and gone. So he's a guy that, is it going to take a little bit of time? Yes, and understandably so, coming from the Division II level. But to your point, playing so much football, there's a lot that he knows how to do. And so I think not really a surprise that he was so comfortable at the Senior Bowl when going up against the best of the senior class. And then here in the preseason, where he's a smart guy, he's a confident guy. And I tell you what, if you've ever talked to his dad, you understand where that confidence comes from. Travis Bagent, I did a story on Tyson back in December, just talking about his background and his dad. And his dad ended up being a much bigger part of the story than I realized, just because he was so fascinating. I ended up talking with his dad more than I did Tyson. His dad is a world champion arm wrestler, 28 world championships, 17 left-handed, 11 right-handed. He knew for early on he wanted Tyson to be a quarterback. So he made sure he coached his little league football team, and just to make sure he could put him at quarterback. And so, he's Travis. If you ever talk to Travis, he's part showman, part competitor. And so apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. That's where Tyson gets it from. That family dynamic and that those competitive genes. He's kind of been groomed for this moment. So we'll see how far he can take it.
You might say his dad is over the top.
There you go.
You guys get
I
that
like
joke?
the reference there. Yeah, I like it.
Bill Parcells used to have like these rules for like drafting a quarterback, and like I haven't gone through every single one of them in Bagent, but just because he played so much, I would safely assume he meets like a lot of them, where like an Anthony Richardson does not, where a Trey Lance did not. I'm just curious, like, what you make of that. I know scouting has changed over the years. Quarterbacks aren't staying as long as they used to. We had the COVID year, so things have been different. But just in terms of like finding that quarterback with experience and taking swings on them, I'm just curious, like, where do you think the Bill Parcells rules of quarterback drafting fit into today's, modern scouting?
Yeah, no, it's something that would be interesting to hear Coach Parcells talk about, because the NFL is so different now than it was 20 years ago. A lot of these guys coming out are in school for 2 years, 2.5 years. CJ Stroud was a redshirt sophomore. Bryce Young was a 2-year starter as a junior coming out of Alabama. And then, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, how his meager experience as really just a 1-year starter and having so few pass attempts. We'll see how that plays out. I mean, it's an interesting sample of, and teams will look at that, and that will affect how they look at the quarterback position moving forward. But, in the past, redshirt sophomores, juniors, with 1-year starters, the track record isn't great. Now, there've certainly been a few that have, and we heard this a lot with Joe Burrow, being a 1-year starter come out of LSU. Now, it was arguably the greatest college football season we've ever seen from a quarterback. But, it's something that, was talked about a ton leading up to that 2020 draft, because he didn't have necessarily the number of starts you want to see, the body of work. But, I think at the end of the day, you have to focus on the player. And, yes, you'd love for every single one of these quarterback prospects to have, 35 plus starts. You'd love for them all to play an SEC competition, SEC schedule, so you have a good idea the defenses they're going up against. But that's what makes the quarterback position so tough to scout, because college football and the NFL, they might as well be two just different sports. They both play football, but they're different sports with what they're asked to do. College football, it's not a level playing field from program to program, especially level to level in the case of Tyson Bagent at Division II. So it does make it a little tricky, and that's why these all-star games are such an important part of the process to just get a better sense for who they are. Is the moment too great for them? How do they adjust to the uptick in speed? So many variables go into all of this. And that's why I thought it was surprising that Bagent went undrafted, because I thought he kind of checked the boxes throughout the draft process.
Well, especially because 14 quarterbacks ended up getting drafted. 12 in the first 5 rounds. Like, if you told me it was just a year where, there wasn't a run on quarterbacks or whatever, but it seemed like everybody on draft weekend was kind of trying to chase their own Brock Purdy situation, and you just would have thought that Tyson Bagent would have been in there. So I guess it worked out for the Bears. We're able to sign him as an undrafted free agent, especially after coaching him in the Senior Bowl.
Right. And look, it was a good quarterback class. It's not like, all these. Bagent, for me personally, was my 14th ranked quarterback. So it's not like I thought he was going to be this 4th round pick or anything like that. I gave him a 7th round grade, 14th quarterback, behind guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's had a good camp, Aiden O'Connell, Jake Hayner, Clayton Tune, Stetson Bennett. So it was a really good day 3 quarterback group, and we saw that play out. And I think something else that, I think we'll see this in this upcoming draft class, teams are more willing to take swings at quarterback, because why not? On day 3, if you really like a guy's intangibles, you think that, okay, he's got a lot of what we want in our quarterback room. It fits. And that's what, when you're talking about backups, because when you're drafting a quarterback on day 3, you're signing an undrafted free agent, I don't think you're realistically thinking, okay, this guy might be the future. He might, down the line, 3 years from now, he's gonna be our starter. You're not really thinking it that way. You're thinking of it, okay, what is he going to bring to our team this year as a rookie and next year in the quarterback room? Is he going to help our starter get ready? Is he going to help put together the game plan? What does he bring to our quarterback room? That's a big part of which quarterbacks get drafted on day 3, more so than, does this guy have a ceiling as a starter, maybe eventually down the road?
If I would have told you maybe before the draft that Tyreek Stevenson would be starting for a team in week 1, and one reason why is how tenacious he plays with a certain level of edge, what would you say, Dane?
I think that would make a lot of sense. He was a guy that was an easy day 2 type of player. You like the size, 6 foot, 200 pounds. Wasn't the most productive. It was one thing I think that I know I dinged him for, maybe even more so than I should have, is he just didn't have a ton of production, a ton of interceptions, but physically impressive athlete. The way he looks, the way he moves, and the way he carries himself. This is a guy, he's oldest of 5 kids, grew up in Miami, grew up with a tough crowd, kind of, pushing everybody on the football field. And that's really shown in his game. He's not afraid to play a little bump and run, play a little press. He's not afraid to get physical down the field. And sometimes a little bit too much. Sometimes that aggressiveness works against him with double moves and, getting him to bite on plays. But this is a size speed athlete that you love the aggressiveness. You love the tenacity that he plays with. I thought he was best as a press man corner, but he's not only that, because he does have the range. He does have long speed. He does have short area quickness. Just needs to become a little bit more of a disciplined football player. But I mean, that's what you expect in rookies, right? I mean, you expect a guy that is going to have a few bumps along the way, but if he's aggressive, he's athletic, he's not afraid of the moment. And you also liked with him that he played some different positions. At Georgia, he was more of a nickel. He played a little bit of safety, transferred to Miami, and he's more of an outside corner, which I think he is most comfortable at. And so I'm not really surprised to see him kind of hit the ground running now that he's in a training camp.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself for the evaluation, because he has dropped 2 interceptions the last 2 weeks, and he had one go right through his hands in the end zone the other day that turned into a touchdown for the Colts. So if there is any weakness we're still seeing to his game, it's that ball production that you were talking about, and that needs to come around, especially in this defense. And he's had 2 personal foul penalties the last 2 weeks too. So sometimes I think that tenaciousness can work against him a little bit. To stay on the corner, early on in training camp, Terrell Smith from Minnesota, they were actually having those guys compete, and Smith got hurt, and so he missed some time, and I think Stevenson kind of pulled away because of that. But I know we were a little surprised to see, this 5th-round corner from Minnesota get in there a little bit earlier than maybe we thought. What do you remember about evaluating Terrell Smith? And it seems like the coaches still like him, because the only thing that really held him back here was being banged up a little bit. Now he has returned to practice.
Yeah, and another guy that has size and speed. He was a big-time track guy coming out of Georgia in high school. He goes to Minnesota, and he had SEC offers, but he decided to go to Minnesota. And he, like I said, the size that really stands out. He's got 33-inch arms. He's over 6 foot. He's 205 pounds. That size maybe works against him a little bit. There's a little bit of stiffness there in terms of his transitions and moving with some route runners, but vertical routes, one-cut routes, he can stay attached. He can stay in phase and use that length to break up passes. So a little grabby. There are times where that really maybe puts him behind the 8 ball when he starts to get handsy and uses a little more excessive contact down the field. But he's a guy that, you kind of embrace that physicality that he has, because you don't want him to reel it back too much, because that size, that speed is what makes him so talented. He's a guy that I thought of, mid-round pick, 4th-round pick. Another guy that I wish had maybe a little bit better ball skills. I thought he left some production on the field. But when you look at the traits, size, speed, length, physicality, another guy that I think he's very similar to Stevenson, where you like a lot of the traits, and now it's up to our coaches to, hey, let's get this guy disciplined. Let's get this guy locked in so he can anticipate better, maybe not use as much contact. So, to take a swing on him where they did, I totally understand it.
Dane, I know you got to go here quickly, but I want to ask you, quickly about Roschon Johnson. He's pushing now for first-team reps with Khalil Herbert. He's out there in 3rd down situations. I think his pass protection skills have really endeared himself to the offense. Like, he's everything you said he could be. And I think that maybe this is what it is. Like, he's becoming everything the Bears said he could be too. So I just want your thoughts on, maybe him breaking out more as a pro than he did in college. I know he was behind a superstar in college, but I'm just thinking maybe he found the right fit here with the Bears, especially early on in his career.
Yeah, and he was a 4th-round pick, right?
Yeah.
I was surprised he lasted as far as he did. I thought for sure he would go in the top 100 just with everything that he has to offer. Because no matter what, even if he ends up being a backup for his entire career, what he gives you on special teams, what he gives you in the locker room, the fact that he can be an any down back, like if you don't have to put him out. Some backs have to be out there on 1st down. Some have to be out there on 3rd down. You understand their role. He doesn't matter. He could be out there in any situation. And so what he brings from an intangible standpoint, from a locker room standpoint, that cannot be overstated. It is something that is a real. It's something. We'll keep him on an NFL roster for a long time, regardless. So the fact that he's even getting some run with the ones is awesome to hear, because behind Bijan Robinson all those years, being a quarterback out of high school, I don't know that we have really seen the best of Roschon Johnson yet as a running back. He has, the ability to make guys miss, but he also has that power where he can break tackles. He can catch the ball in the backfield. Like you said, the pass protection, that's a big part of that. So there's so much value that he brings to the offense and to that running back room that I'm still a little surprised he fell as far as he did in the draft.
Last one I have for you, Dane, is week 0 in the college football season. We don't usually talk to you around this time of year. What does week 0 look like for you as you jump into a whole new draft class? And I'm sure you've already been working on it for months.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. My top 50 comes out this week, this Thursday. So 2 days. That's a starting point. That's where we have to have a starting point as we go into the season. Things will change. Well, obviously new tape to watch on these guys. But this is the starting point. And week 0 doesn't have a ton of big games, but week 1 is going to be a lot of fun. Labor Day weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, just the whole weekend of college football. There's a lot coming up here, but hopefully people check out the top 50. I've done position by position previews all through the summer. Check those out as well on The Athletic. But the top 50, that I spent a lot of time on that just because that's the starting point. When we look back and say, Gervon Dexter, where did he start the season last year? Oh, he was, number 40 or wherever he started in last year's August top 50. And then to see, okay, well, throughout the season, he was here and then finished on draft weekend. This is where he was here. So, it's just interesting to see that trajectory, the journey these guys take. So people check out that top 50 this week.
I was also very happy when Prospects to the Pros popped up in my podcast feed on the Athletic Football Show, and you were paired with our guy on this show, Nate Tice, for that podcast. And that is an outstanding way just to keep up throughout the college football season on what's going on with the NFL draft. No better place to get draft coverage than the Athletic. Dane, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thanks,
there he is, Dane Brugler. At DP Brugler, you must be following him. Just someone commented during the interview, an encyclopedia of football knowledge. No question. It's always impressive.
Question for you, Mr. Hoge.
Yes.
Are we guilty of talking up another young quarterback, as we seem to do every now and then, as Bears media and Bears as two people who follow the Bears for a long time?
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair question, but I also think what happens here is
he's been good though.
Right. And
my encyclopedia of quarterbacks has grown.
But people hear this analysis and stuff, and then they just immediately get hyperbolic, like we're trying to claim he should be challenging Justin Fields for the starting job. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that we have talked about on this show for years, and that is keep a young developmental quarterback on your roster. And they seemingly have done that for once. They didn't use a draft pick on him, which we always talk about every year and say, use a draft pick on it. And so it's a better case. They didn't have to use a draft pick. They signed the guy that Getsy got to know at the Senior Bowl. And this isn't just some good game he had. He has been probably, and this is not a knock at Justin Fields, so don't confuse it, he's probably been the most consistent quarterback we've seen in training camp. Consistent, not best, consistent. And he's consistently improved each week. And when you hear polls on this podcast last week talk about just rookies hitting these checkpoints, right? Well, he's done that too. And so no one's talking about this guy even, quite frankly, and I don't even have that high expectations for Brock Purdy this year, but that would be best case scenario. And hopefully you don't see him play because Justin plays the whole season. But the reality is the number 2 quarterback on this roster has been about as bad as a backup quarterback can be this time of year. And this young kid that they signed has already beat out Nathan Peterman on the depth chart and seemingly is coming for number 2 and deserves it. That's all anyone here is saying.
Yeah, Flus didn't really close the door on that type of scenario, that this is an open competition between him and P.J. Walker. Now, P.J. Walker was guaranteed $2 million. Not a lot in a football contract sense, but still $2 million guaranteed. We can't overlook Luke Getsy's role in this because I imagine Bagent had a bunch of opportunities to go elsewhere, especially in undrafted free agency, which, well, to use Ryan Pace's old description, could be like the Wild Wild West because there's all sorts of signing bonuses being thrown out there. You're using relationships you have with these players through your scouts to get deals done. And they had the offensive coordinator have this connection with Bagent. So that's from the Senior Bowl. Obviously, they like each other. That carried over. We'll see. He's been good. You're right. He has been consistent.
I touched a lot on this on our CSGO show yesterday, so I won't go into too much detail. But just and I brought it up to Dane too. Just the thing that impressed me more than anything else when you go back and watch the actual tape that I didn't necessarily even appreciate live during the game was just you see him at the line of scrimmage making checks, talking after the game about how there's 2 plays built into every play, and he seemingly is reading the defense, making the correct checks, using motion to help him read the defense pre-snap. And then post-snap, at least in this game, making the right reads and decisions quickly, by the way, and just like a calmness and a poise. Even when they ran a bootleg and they blitzed that boot from the back end, I mean, that could cause a rookie to lose his mind in the moment. And he just calmly drifted, great footwork, threw a dart on the run.
He looks experienced.
That's the word. He looks like a guy who has thrown 2,000 passes in college.
And that's one reason I brought up the Bill Parcells thing, because I know it's overlooked. I know scouting has changed. But sometimes you just see the experience come through. Like with Brock Purdy. He fit a lot of those Bill Parcells rules too. Multi-year starter in college, bigger program than Bagent, but like sometimes that experience just shows through. And for guys who have covered the Mitch Trubisky experience and even the Justin Fields experience, you can see the experience show through these guys, or lack thereof, at times, even when they go from year 1 to year 2 in their own development with certain coaches.
All right. One last thing on this, and then I want to actually switch to the quarterback that, the
starter
matters a lot more. But the idea of keeping 3 quarterbacks, because as much as I think it's actually smart to open the door a little bit here to the idea that Bagent can push Walker, part of me thinks that 60% of that idea is to push Walker. Like, hello, man, get your shit together. It's you got to play. That's why you open up competition, right? Because you're motivating both guys. Not that Bagent seemingly needs it, but he's going to keep pushing. But okay, let's just address the question, can they keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man?
If they want to, yes.
Absolutely you can. And let's think about these concussion rules these days and how easy it is to pull quarterbacks from games. Now, let's also think about the emergency quarterback rule that they put back in this year. You're allowed to have a quarterback inactive on game day, but still dress. And if you need it, if both 1 and 2 get hurt, that third quarterback is allowed to play in the game. And to me, the reason why that's important is, look, we make such a big fuss about the 53-man roster, and it does matter. But when all of a sudden you zoom out in week 7, Johns, and there's 3 guys that have been inactive in every game that are basically just burning a roster spot, and it ends up not being that big of a deal. Is my point.
Like, it changes within 5 days after
yes,
the first wave of waivers. It's just how it is. I feel like quarterbacks need to be viewed differently in terms of waivers, don't they? It's not like waiving like your 4th safety. You're waiving a young quarterback in a quarterback-starved league who has impressed, and the buzz is out there. Like, what do you do? It's not. I don't think it's an easy decision. In most cases, I think players clear waivers. Like 90% of the time, the player you're worried about, he's going to clear waivers. But I don't think we ever had this discussion where we're talking about a young quarterback who was seemingly pulled early in a preseason game because he was good. Like, we've never had this conversation on this podcast because we haven't had the situation come up.
I'm not sure we've had it come up with a starter. On the flip side, though, Johns, if you're going to claim a quarterback off of waivers, it's a little different than claiming a linebacker. Like, that quarterback's starting over.
I get it, but if
brand new offense.
But if a team is up for keeping 3 quarterbacks on their roster, and I think some teams are, Like, this is the conversation you got to bring in your pro scouts with, because that's the information you need. Hey, which teams could potentially keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster? And these are real things that are discussed in these cut meetings. Like, you lay out your competition out there.
I could think of a few teams that if I were them, I would 100% claim Tyson Bagent. I don't care if he's the last guy on the 53. I don't have a good quarterback situation, and I want a young developmental guy. So how about Tampa right now?
Yeah.
Tampa, their quarterback situation's not good. How about the Cardinals, who are just they know they're going to be bad this year. They have doubts about Kyler Murray, who's coming off an injury. How about this one that no one wants to hear? The Green Bay Packers. Because sorry, I'm just real quick. Their depth isn't great behind Jordan Love. And oh, by the way, similar system.
That's what I was going to mention. This system you're talking about. I mean, did you listen to Play Callers, the podcast from The Athletic? This system.
Oh, yes.
That Luke Getsy has installed, or at least the base principles of it. It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere.
You think Kyle Shanahan looked at the tape from Saturday?
Probably.
With his experience with Brock Purdy last year too?
Yes.
Like,
I don't mean to get carried away with this this conversation here, but quarterbacks are viewed differently. Evaluations are different. I've said it a million times on this podcast. There's the draft and there's a quarterback draft, right? And it's a QB-driven league, and a lot of teams need young ones, right? Young ones. And even if he doesn't become a full-time starter, maybe he's Brock Purdy for 2 or 3 seasons. You know what I'm talking about? Like, in this system, these are like system concerns. I don't see it as a concern at all. You know why? Because that system is everywhere. Everywhere. From Minnesota to Green Bay to Miami to San Francisco. I mean, it goes on and on. To Cincinnati. It's everywhere. I'm forgetting a lot of cities too.
Yeah, it's funny that we're having this conversation off the heels of the conversation we had with
New York Jets.
Yeah, because we talked to polls about this last week, and the idea that most guys clear waivers, but then there's always some you don't. You have to project it, and that's all we're doing here. And I just feel like this is a situation where I don't think Bagent would. But look, there's one more preseason game, and quite frankly, as fun as this Tyson Bagent story was over the weekend when Justin Fields and the starters didn't play, I think and I wrote about this in my newsletter this morning, let's not lose sight of what's important this week. So they're simulating a game week as much as they can at Hallis Hall. They're going to have meetings where they actually do some game planning against the Bills. They'll have scout team in practice. They're setting up their daily schedule so that's more similar to what they'll have in week 1. Meeting schedules, things like that. I think most feel like Justin Fields still needs to play. I know I feel that way. I get the sense based on what Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles have hinted that the starters will play. And oh, by the way, if he's really got a new center all of a sudden, I would think that they need to play even more so, because Lucas Patrick was supposed to be Justin Fields' center last year, but because of injuries, only got 10 total snaps at the position with Justin Fields. And he's been working with Cody Whitehair all offseason and all of training camp.
The counterpoint with that is, oh boy, like that offensive line is in flux.
Yes.
And you need to protect Justin Fields. So I think more than anyone, Luke Getsy needs to protect Justin Fields with his play calls. Like, I'm with you. He needs to play some. How much? I don't know. I'm still kind of old school, like Andy Reid. I see value in that. But then you try modern thinking, and you don't want to risk injury too much, because what's the real value in it? There's got to be a happy medium here. But like, if I'm the Bears and laying out my plan for the preseason, I'm looking at an offensive line, and I'm like rating my confidence in this. If I'm Matt Eberflus, I'm asking everybody on the offensive staff, like, what's your confidence in the offensive line this week in holding up, protecting Justin Fields? In 2 or 3 weeks, it could be better. They have time to get better together. But in this condensed period this week, how good can we be, and how many reps should Justin Fields be behind them against the Buffalo Bills? Like, those are things you have to measure and weigh and argue about.
Great question from Cloudy Future here in the comments, and something I thought about last night. And I don't know the answer to it, but I think it's a completely fair question. But I was surprised with the reports that came out of Dallas yesterday that Cody Whitehair was back to left guard. And we saw him lead practice last week with a hand injury.
It's probably a bit of both. I know exactly what they're going to say. Like, we're looking for our best 5. From texting with the Fishman, Kevin Fishbane yesterday, they seem to play with different guys in different places.
Yeah.
Trying not to give away what I can. I don't know. Guys are playing in different spots. So they tried a different, some different assembly lines there. Put it that way.
Okay. Well, be interesting to watch. I guess if they want to keep that hidden, they can just not play them Saturday, but I'll just get back to the idea.
But some of these guys need game action. Like, also, like
the
Darnell Wright
quarterback
needs
does.
To play. Yes. Braxton Jones need it. Yeah.
I know everybody's excited about Justin. I am too. He has not arrived yet from a passing standpoint. He's had 7 snaps in the preseason. All 3 passes went behind the line of scrimmage. There's a reason Andy Reid is playing Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. You just, I don't.
Well, the practice games, you want to get them ready.
Yeah.
But Lugetti could practice protecting Justin Fields with his play calls then too. Get that ball out. Run more screens if you have to. They're going to be part of your package. I imagine you've practiced them a bunch. Get that run game going. Just protect your quarterback.
All right, on the offensive line, 1 to 10, your level of concern right now.
10 being great.
Yeah.
About a 7.5, 8.
Yeah. How? I guess it wouldn't be August without offensive line concerns. But I was thinking about this last night. You look at across the roster. I mean, the only other position I might be more worried about right now than offensive line is punt returner. But at least they have a guy there that can catch the ball. He can't
turn off your special teams mode just for a second.
Okay, how many games did they lose because of muff punts last year?
Who
At
cares?
least 2.
They got the first pick out of that.
Fine, but they're not going for that this year. They still need somebody to have that job this year so they don't lose it in the fourth quarter.
It's fine. Dante Pettis, you're back on the roster, buddy.
Great. Catch the ball. Get your 4 yards. The point is, you could be critical of Ryan Poles, I think, here. The one move they made was sign Nate Davis. And then draft Darnell Wright, of course.
Yeah,
but
like, I think the depth is actually, like, at this point when your starters are hurt, like, everybody gets, our depth's awful. I wish they would have done more. But they have done a bit. Like, Alex Leatherwood is a former first-round pick.
Yeah.
He hasn't panned out, but he has that type of potential. I don't think he's ever going to reach that potential.
I'm more excited about Ja'Tyre Carter.
I get it.
Yeah.
Late round draft pick. Doug Kramer, late round draft pick. Lucas Patrick, for as much as he gets heat out there, that is a very experienced backup who can handle 3 different spots in your offensive line. So if we're talking about those 4 players as your reserves, a couple draft picks, a veteran who's experienced in the system, and a former first-round pick with potential. Now, where that potential is, I don't know. That's not that bad of depth, in my opinion. They're not your starters, but that's not bad depth.
I agree with that. It's a little uneasy that for a coaching staff that's constantly talking about, the best 5. And at one point we were talking about how great is it that you have your 5 going into training camp, and then they really haven't had their 5.
I guess my question is, like, who else would you have spent more money on? Another veteran minimum guy? They claim the guy off waivers, Logan Sternberg. Like, his name,
Lucas Logan Sternberg.
You know what I'm talking about? The guy from the Lions.
I don't know. Logan Stenberg, right?
Yes, Logan Stenberg.
Guard, 6'6", 312. Fourth
Came
year
off
out of
waivers from the Lions. Yeah, starting
he's out of
experience.
Kentucky. We haven't really seen him though much. I don't know.
You're talking about backups for backups now. You know, like it's everybody wants to improve their depth, but how much money are you really, spending on it? And my question to all of that is like, who do you want?
I think that's a fair question. I just, regardless of what they did or what depth they do have, they've had to certainly lean into it a lot.
Yeah, I would say if you're gonna like the strongest criticism of it is that you have two guards, like your two projected guards, in Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis, are two guys who have durability concerns. Nate Davis talked to people with the Titans, Tennessee. People were close to that team, cover that team. He had injury problems last year. We all know Tevin Jenkins' situation. So maybe the Bears did recognize that and they felt good about their depth. But like if that's one major criticism I have is that your two projected starting guards have major durability problems.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they have more depth than maybe we thought, or I think Carter's earned some respect here, which is encouraging. I think Alex Leatherwood still has a little bit of ways to go, but it's still, there's some pedigree there, and hope it comes through. Any other thoughts that we should hit on? Of course, we'll be back later in the week to talk about this game.
Can we see the starting defense together at one point? I know Eddie Jackson just got hurt, but are you getting concerned about Jaquan Brisker, Jermaine Edmonds yet? DeMarcus Walker didn't practice yesterday. I know it was a walkthrough, but
and what's going on with Yannick Ngakoue? Why didn't he practice?
Veteran Day.
He didn't play over the weekend. That one stood out to me too. I mean, I get it. I understand him not playing, but he didn't even do much in Indy last week. So concerned. Not necessarily, because I think most of these guys fall in the category of what they are. They don't need to play in the preseason. But they sure as hell had a lot of guys out for a lot of practices.
Yeah. It's been a long time since Brisker has played.
That's the one I point to, because Brisker's the one that has not arrived and has a concussion history. And we don't know.
You think it's a concussion?
I don't. They're not telling us, so I don't know. But anytime a guy with a concussion history misses this much time and they're not telling us what it is, I don't like that. I mean, I'd feel better if they just came out and said, hey, it's a hamstring.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it is.
Now he's not in some dark room because he's out there at every single practice talking trash to the offense.
Yes.
We saw that in Indianapolis to a lot of it. Yeah, I don't know. That this is the Bears' philosophy, at least right now, in dealing with injuries.
The flusophy.
Flusophacy. I can't say that.
Yeah, you got to work on that one a little bit.
And
once you nail it down, it's pretty fun to say. The flusophy.
Yeah, I'll try later. I'll practice in the mirror.
All right. Well, fun episode. Love having Dane on as always, and make sure you check out his story feature on Tyson Bagent from last December. And we'll be back Thursday. I think we're working on another special guest for Thursday's show. So stay tuned for that. Of course, it's the last opportunity in the last week with cut downs. Cut downs are a week from today as we record this on Tuesday morning.
I think we'll call these live Tuesdays. These might become a staple for Hoge Jahns, by the way.
Live Tuesdays.
Okay. Tuesday mornings with Hoge Jahns.
Coffee.
With the Adams.
Coffee. Ooh, we got to work on that. Yeah.
Coffee drinking football guys.
Coffee. We need a new shirt.
I
still like beer drinking football guys, but coffee drinking.
It's too early. too early, although it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as they say.
You go straight coffee, or because I usually drink espresso.
No, I need food first because if I'm drinking straight coffee, I'm going straight to the bathroom.
Okay, too much information. I'm sorry I asked.
Come on. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
The Nespresso pods are the way to go. With just a little splash of water in there is what I do. Start the day off right. Quick and easy. You got to go. Can't be sitting there sipping your coffee for an hour. Maybe that's why you're always late to the show.
Making coffee. Well, today was the kids.
Today you were on time.
Exactly on time.
It was impressive. It's a good start to the week. All right. We're out of here. Thank you for everyone being here live. We appreciate you. Of course, you can always find the show anytime on our YouTube channel, Hoge Jahns on YouTube, and of course, as a podcast, as we've been here for 9 years, listening the old-fashioned way. We appreciate you. Saw so many of you guys out in Indy. Oh, one last thing. Friday, you're playing golf in the CHGO Kickoff Classic. And our friends from Obvious Shirts, Joe and Devin, are joining us. And apparently, and I'm announcing this here, they want to make a run at the title. I've never actually played in one of these events, like actually trying to win it. And I did warn them that, we'll help a little, but.
Is it a best ball scramble?
Yes.
Oh, we're good.
We're good.
You just got to contribute at least once every 2 holes.
Well, I got but you can't ever bogey. You bogey once, you're dead. But I get the sense that maybe they're good at golf. I don't know. I've never played golf with them.
It's the first time. You know what? I'm not awful. I'm not great. I could give you some good holes.
Right.
But I have too many children, and this is the first time I've been out all summer.
Oh, boy. That's not surprising. I can't imagine you having time to golf.
I brought my clubs down to Indianapolis, and I was very disappointed.
You dodged.
I got bumped.
You dodged. You didn't get bumped. You were always fifth. We weren't going to bump our CHGO producer, Lawrence, who's awesome, and he was out there. And thank God he was there because I needed him just for my own sanity. You didn't miss a thing. Trust me. You did not want to be out. I should have gone out there with you. Lawrence and I should have formed a different foursome with you, and I had another friend who lives in Carmel that wanted to play with us. That should have been our foursome, and we should have left Carm and Braggs 9 holes away doing whatever they wanted to do by themselves because it was obnoxious.
We need to have someone keep an eye on Braggs, so there's no way that he broke 100. Like, legitimately broke 100.
Oh,
Multiple breakfast balls. I'm sure there's mulligans, even though he didn't pay for them, if we're having that type of deals.
Oh, you're talking about this coming Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and he has his own Northwest Indiana foursome.
Yeah.
So, we might have to fly a drone over that foursome or something just to spy on them because
make sure they're keeping it honest.
Because he's claiming he breaks 100, but so far, I just saw 109.
Yeah,
and it was a generous 109. And there was some math in there that we had to check just to get to 109. All right. Fun show. Again, appreciate Dane jumping on. We'll be back Thursday. And make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Johns, Reading Johns in the Athletic. You can find me, CHGO, diehard newsletter out in the morning for you. Came out today. Can't promise it's still going to be every day now that we're out of training camp, but we're still going to a lot more frequent than last year, which is good. And make sure you check out Obvious Shirts. Speaking of that, got the polo on right now. Johns has one of the new T-shirts, and I'm sure we'll be rocking these Friday at that golf outing. See you Thursday.
See ya.